Good morning, everybody. My name's Tyrell. I'm with Duncan, New Zealand. I just reflecting a little bit this morning after yesterday, the presentations that we all enjoyed in the evening. I think we've got a pretty unique community here. I think we have something within this industry that you don't find in other parts of the red meat industry. I don't think you would see a group of farmers coming together as you do here with your DINS board, with your DFA executive, with the marketing representatives of all of your companies who all work collaboratively together and willing to stand up here and share a lot of their business and a lot of the inside information within their company and their strategy. And you've got their CEOs and you've got their livestock representatives. So, we come together every year. I think we often knock each other about a little bit, but I think if you stand back and have a look at what we've got, I think it's pretty unique. And I think it's rather sad that we've had quite a few farmers who have left this community in recent years, and I'd like to think that hopefully we get into a point where we can stop that happening and we can start to build for the future. So just a little bit of a reflection on that. Last night we had Mike Patterson gave us a very interesting reflection and look back on the last 40 years, but I think we're at a turning point now and hopefully we've got some excitement ahead. Lucky last presentation, so we've all taken a slightly different approach to what each company is doing, but I think that gives you a much broader view of all of the activity that's going on within the various companies. Apologies for Andy Duncan, who can't be here today, so he's travelling at the moment. Ray Coombs, who's our South Island livestock representatives and looks after our South Island operations, is here. Ray, are you about? Down the back of the room, okay. All right, so to crack into this, Duncan, New Zealand. We are Duncan, New Zealand. We were Duncan & Co. We've changed our brand and we've changed the name of the company. Why do we do that? We had a reflection and quite a lot of research into the brand itself, which has a lot of history in the market and a very good reputation and integrity in the market. But what we wanted to do is, because we're very much export facing, is accentuate the New Zealand origin. So we are now Duncan New Zealand in name and Duncan New Zealand in brand. We're a private family-owned business established in 1990, so we've just hit 25 years old. Andy is the owner and CEO, who's based at Whitford near Auckland. We have only about 5 staff working up there in the logistics side of the business, including the operations. We've got 2 plants, one in Rotorua, which we've had for a number of years, and recently we purchased the Mosgiel plant outright in just outside of Dunedin. 2 livestock reps, North Island and South Island, and my new role at the company since October last year, and I'm based at the Mosgiel plant. And we've just entered into a new multi-species partnership with Blue Sky Meat. So that's just about a greater level of cooperation, which I think is happening right across different sectors within the organisations. So our vision is creating a sustainable future for New Zealand venison, and that's something we really mean, from the farmer through to our business, through to our customers' business. Everybody has to make a living, and we all have to have a sustainable future, and we need to make some margins and some profits. Brand, we do believe we can create a market-leading brand, relevant, bold and premium, and it's also important that we don't just bring the brand to life in our markets, but also in our workplace as well, and hopefully back on the farm. As far as the market's concerned, we've got some very strong customers in certain markets, but we're looking to grow in other areas. So it's respecting what we've got and how we can grow that for the future. Customer absolutely first as far as our strategy is concerned. So integrity, service, quality of what we supply them has to be forefront in our business. The farmer more and more is involved. He wants to be connected, we believe, committed to the business and ultimately rewarded for that commitment. As far as people is concerned, so we want to lead as far as staff training and personal development is concerned, and this week we've got 10 of our staff from our plants while we're going through the quiet off season at an outward bound course at Anakiwa. So we're just trying to give people an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise experience in order for their development for the business and for themselves as individuals. And finally, the planet's there. But it's important for all of us. We have to recognise we all have to do something, so we have to have a sustainable environmental policy within our company that actually means something and matters. So that's the new look brand for us, Duncan New Zealand, and our signature, natural taste of New Zealand. There was discussion yesterday from Steve Carden, and it was an excellent presentation around nutrition. When we looked at that, and we looked at how we bring that in to a tagline on a brand, and you could say natural, healthy New Zealand, but it loses a connection with the chef in terms of the romance that you want to create around the product. You want to create something which gives an impression which is mouth-watering and appetising, and you've got to be careful when you delve back into the nutritional side that you don't lose that connection. So we went out to 14 different companies with about 5 different options of what we wanted, something that resonated with them in English that still made sense in their languages, in 6 different languages. And 12 of those 14 companies came back and said the natural taste of New Zealand is what we feel best typifies what New Zealand venison means to us. So we bring that into our packaging, onto our vacuum bags, and also onto our cartons. So for us, about 90% of our product will go through to food service and end up in the restaurant. So the impression that we can give to the chef on the carton and when he opens the carton on the vacuum bag is the most direct marketing we can get in the impression of the product, the quality of the product, and the messaging that we can give to the chef through that media. So that's a little bit about the brand. If we look at the markets, not much to say about that graph, except you can see things are reasonably consistent in terms of total volume coming out of New Zealand and value. The value's gone down more because of the change in currency over the last year. Germany is still number 1, but declining, and USA now sits number 2 in terms of total export volumes out of New Zealand. These are all New Zealand figures. But looking at chilled, you'll see that USA is now number 1, and some of this has been mentioned by others this morning, so just repeating some of that information. So USA is now our number 1 chilled market, and the growth and the value there is certainly significant. So in summary, what's happening in markets? 31% of New Zealand venison still goes to Germany, but down from over 50% in the past. 70% still goes to EU countries or Euro currency countries, and they are still seasonal. So that's still an issue for us that we need to continue to work away from. 10% of venison now going to the UK, that's doubled in the last year. So we've got significant movement into another currency and into another market. 14% of the USA is now New Zealand's 2nd largest venison market, and 24% of our chilled venison goes to the USA. So there is significant development, significant diversification occurring. We are growing away from Europe. You've heard this morning about the exciting programs which everybody's working on, but I think you've also heard from those customers the amount of effort required to make that happen and to make that change. And we can't forget that Europe is still by far our largest leg market. So all of the work that's been done into the USA, it's still predominantly a middle market, and it's very hard, even with the efforts of Graham, to get Denver legs and leg products in volume into that market. So we're still heavily reliant on Europe when it comes to legs, and legs are 30% of the animal. A little bit on currency. So graphs can be confusing. So what are we trying to say here? The one on the left is the New Zealand dollar versus the US dollar in the last 12 months, and the nice thing about that is, if I can get this pointer to work, yeah, there we go, New Zealand dollar coming down. Fantastic. So the New Zealand dollar actually weakened by 16% against the US dollar in the last 12 months. So that benefits about 20% of venison exports. Now, unfortunately, at the same time, I've done this to the 11 months up to April, the New Zealand dollar strengthened 17% against the euro. And that affects 70% of our exports. Now, the good news is that in the last month, if you watch that line out here, it's down to there. So in the last month, the New Zealand dollar has weakened about 8% against the euro. So if you look at the total position now versus a year ago, we're down still 16% against the US dollar. We're now only up 5% against the euro. And if you take those two measures against the 70% that goes to Europe and the 20% to US, we're in a neutral position. Okay, so that strong improvement in the US dollar versus the smaller strength of the New Zealand dollar against the euro gives us a neutral position overall in venison exports. So I just wanted to look at the relativity against other species. So these are independent figures from AgriFacts. If we look at lamb farm gate returns, so these are the published farm gate returns over the last year. Lamb, you can see that it's pushed up and it's headed down now under $5 in terms of its $5 per kg on the average return. And that's a species which is predominantly sold in US dollars. Mutton also has had some highs and is heading a bit lower at the moment, and obviously China's having a major impact on those products. Beef has had the best results through the year, but also beef is probably 90% sold in US dollars, so it's in a currency which is appreciated by 16%. Dairy, well, you'll know the story there, and it's not too bright at the moment. So you've had a significant reduction and the impact that it's having right across that sector. And then we have venison. And there was a graph which was shown by William Oliver yesterday, which showed that over the last 5 years, it's pretty much had exactly the same pattern. It's incredibly consistent, and the only really difference has been minor adjustments in market prices and the impacts of currency. But it's pretty much shown that same pattern for each of the last 5 years. So I'm not trying to talk to you about the cost of production behind your farm gate. But if you can look at those and just consider the implications that has on the price that consumers pay for those products, we've still got a significant gap in venison versus the other red meat and other product options. So overall, what does that mean in terms of change in the last 12 months? You've had a 12% decrease in lamb, a 22% decrease in mutton, 13% increase in cattle, again, which is sold in a currency which has gone up by 16%, a minor increase in the overall price of venison, and a 46% decrease in the price of milk. And that's also before we start talking about improved velvet returns over that same period. So a combination of venison and velvet relative to what's happening in other sides of the fence, I think looks pretty positive. Okay, another part of our strategy are customers, pretty a critical part. And one of the remits which was raised by Richard and the Otago DFA was about the value chain. Just to give you a little bit of a view of that. So what do our customers typically do? We supply firstly to integrated companies. They must have an investment in the value chain for us to want to have them as part of our customer suite. So they arrange the importing, they do the financing, they provide security of payment, and they reduce the risk. They pay us before they get the product. So it doesn't come off the boat, they don't get their hands on it until they've paid us. We've already paid you guys by that stage. They then do the customs, they do the transport, they do the cold storage and palletisation, breaking it down into smaller parcels. In most cases, most of our customers do processing into steaks, goulash, mince, and mince is very much a growth product in the US market at the moment from venison. That's why we've also had a big growth in frozen venison going up there. And typically they supply the retail, industry and food service, and normally it's around 25% retail, 25% industry, and about 50% into remaining food service from most of our customers. They do sales. Anybody can buy something, selling it's the hard part. So they've got sales teams that work to ensure that venison is part of that basket of goods that they keep in front of their salesmen and their customers and keep promoting and pushing the product. Absolutely critical that you've got good distributors with good sales teams who haven't forgotten about your product and you're working with them to develop that. And that comes hand in hand with promotion. Then they've got to distribute the product, and after they've done all of that, they get paid. So they get paid down here, we get paid up here, and you guys get paid somewhere up here. So in terms of value chain, you can ask to investigate the value chain. I'm very confident about the value chain that sits within our industry, and I suggest if you want to find out more about it, go and talk to your company to give them a little bit more information about who their customers are and what their value chain looks like. But a good quote is, a lot of people say, oh, we need to shorten up the value chain, we need to take cost out. The first thing you need to do is understand the value chain. You can only take a step of this out if you're willing to replace the function that performs. And normally that involves more risk and more cost. So we leave that to the experts, we leave that to our customers in the market to do that for us. This has come up already this morning, NRA, so this is the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago. It's the largest food event in the USA, 44,000 food professionals in one place for 4 days. Andy Duncan called through there on his way through to Europe a week and a half ago. It's a chance to meet our customers and their customers face to face. And Here he is, Graham is there again. He's been mentioned already this morning. Graham, can you please stand up? He's down the front. I'd just like you to acknowledge the huge amount of work this guy does for this industry. Travelling through Europe and the US just a few weeks ago, everybody talks about Graham, his influence, how well he responds to their customers and the work he's done for them and for us in the market. So thanks very much, Graham. Okay, the farmer, for us, I mentioned at the start, we believe more and more you want to be involved beyond the farm gate, and that's clearly the situation for those of you who are here, especially today. You need to be connected to your markets and your customers. You should be committed to a processor and a marketing company, and you should be rewarded for that commitment. But we both have more work to do. You've heard a lot about the work that we're doing. Yesterday afternoon, it was a fantastic presentation with Paddy and the group here from the advanced parties talking about what they're learning and what they're doing new behind the farm gate. So some interesting statistics that came out just in the last week. I'm just going to read that stuff at the top. So, actually I've got it down here so I'll make it a little bit easier. So this is the ANZ came out with this report based on a five-year review of red meat. So this is sheep and beef. You may see some similarities. The top 20% of red meat farmers are focused on making profits, have clear plans and goals, have a firm grasp on business, financial data, are good planners, are confident and willing to adopt innovative practices and new technology, are passionate about the industry, pay close attention to basic farm details of feed, production and use, of animal productivity and management. Okay, pretty straightforward. For the last 5 years, the red meat farmer average earnings before interest and tax was $240 per hectare, a 1.1% return on capital. The top 20% earned $500 per hectare, a 7.5% return on capital. It's huge, isn't it? The rate of return for the top 20% is only slightly behind the top 20% of dairy farmers. But the performance gap between those top farmers and the rest has widened in the last 20 years as the very best benefit from challenging convention and grasping new technology. Now, one of the problems I think we have is that there's a group of people in here who think they're in here, and they think the only way that they can get more return on the capital is for the meat companies paying them more. And I think it's ultimately a recognition that, yes, we've got more to do, but for a lot, there is more to do behind the farm gate as well. And I think, to me, it's exciting when you listen to a guy like Paddy Boyd talk about his involvement with a group of young farmers about how he can help them on their farms, and they're actually helping Paddy on his as well. And that he's now changing what he's been doing because of the sharing of information that's coming from that very unique advanced party format which we're creating through the PGP work and Passion to Profit. So just finally, where are we at today? Current situation outlook. The deer kill is estimated to decline 15% this year. We haven't seen that much in the first 3 or 4 months of the year, so there is a concern that most of that decline will occur in the next 6 months and could have a major effect on the number of deer carried through the winter and the ability to supply chilled markets in September and October. The forecast is that it will decrease to 300,000 by 2020. So every way that DINs have looked at it, we've come up with the same number. So that is a concern, and the sooner we can stop that decline occurring, the better for us all. Our company, we've invested in a second venison plant. Why we do that? We're in a declining industry. We're still very confident about this industry and the future that it has. Finally, you've got government and Reserve Bank introducing policy which is having an impact on lower interest rates, which will bring down the New Zealand dollar. You know, I'm confident that that's now happening. Now, it may be driven by the fact that our dairy friends are suffering so badly that they have to finally do something more dramatic, but the beneficiaries of that will be yourselves and other farmers. So it is positive. Continued diversification you've heard about this morning. The promotion that we're doing, lower export volumes, very stable markets, market prices, and a lower New Zealand dollar will improve returns to deer farmers. Plus, you've got the opportunity behind the farm gate with P2P, Plus, we've got the Savannah project, 5 companies working collaboratively together, getting critical mass, using government funding to really try and make a difference in moving away from this seasonal European market and try to expand China in a committed and a collaborative way. So I think the outlook is very positive. Thanks very much.